What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to be taking a look at the new ALBAZ cards that were announced for Power of the Elements. I'm not surprised by this because we continue to get new ALBAZ / branded cards in every set. It's just funny that these were announced right around the same time the structure deck hit the TCG, so there's definitely a lot of hype for ALBAZ as a whole as people are finding different ways to play the deck. Recently at the YCS you saw combos using things like Fluffles within ALBAZ and DESPIA. We've obviously seen the Tri-Brigade. We've seen different combinations of things, and that is one of the cool things about a fusion-based archetype that's not super specific, is it does allow for some deck creativity. Unfortunately, I'm not sure the meta's really at that point right now where we have a ton of creativity, because it's really just like a bunch of good engines that are being played either together or as part of a deck that doesn't do as much for the deck as the engine itself. Things like Prank Kids with Adventurers or the Destiny Artifact Adventurer package. I'd really like to see a little bit more versatility in the meta instead of one engine dominating everything, but that's another topic for another video. So we've got a couple of ALBAZ cards here from Power of the Elements, as well as a few other, I think, loose end cards that I may have missed from upcoming sets that tie into that archetype. So let's jump into it, starting with ALBAZ the ASHEN, level 4 Dark Dragon monster with the same stat line as ALBAZ himself. It becomes Fallen of ALBAZ while on the field or in the graveyard, and while you have a level 8 fusion monster in your graveyard, this card gets 200 attack for each monster in your graveyard. Also, your opponent cannot target other monsters you control with card effects. If a monster you control leaves the field by an opponent's card effect while this card and a fusion monster is in your graveyard, you can special summon this card. And of course, these effects are all once per turn. So basically, it gets an attack buff that's kind of okay, but actually a little bit decent because of the fact that it doesn't specify with different names. So even if you have 3 or 4 monsters engraved, this thing's 2600 and might be able to swing over a problem card in a dire situation. The more potent part of this effect, of course, is the opponent not being able to target other monsters with card effects. If you have this out and you have maybe a few of your other fusions and or Despia monsters, you can sort of protect your board a lot more effectively with this. And because it does self-revive, it does have that ability to recur, which makes it worth looking at as an inclusion in the deck. Now, looking at some of the support, obviously Mirror Jade is one of the first thing that comes to mind. In addition to just being a powerful boss monster, Mirror Jade can also mill a fusion monster from your extra deck once per turn, meaning you're almost always going to have what you need engraved to make this live for recursion and card effect protection, which is really cool. One of the more popular cards in the ALBAZ Despia deck as a whole is Red Eyes Dark Dragoon, obviously because it's an insane card, but it's also very easy to summon because of branded fusion. And what's neat about it is the Dragoon is the level 8 fusion monster, so if the opponent does somehow out it, you can revive ALBAZ and you can sort of keep your plays going. The opponent has likely wasted some resources to out a card like Dragoon, so it's definitely nice in terms of the pressure that it places on the opponent from that perspective. Now, the next card, Dogmatikaturgy. Ritual summon one Dogmatika ritual monster from your hand or deck by tributing Dogmatika monsters and or ritual fusion or synchro monsters from your field whose total levels equal exactly the level of that monster. You can banish this card from your graveyard, then target 2 Dogmatika monsters with different levels in your grave, add one of them to the hand, and place the other on the bottom of the deck. So it's a ritual trap. You can activate tributing monsters from the field, and it does have to be exact, but you can ritual summon the monster from hand or deck, which is a really solid option to have. Of course, the biggest problem that comes in with this card right off the bat is that Dogmatika does not have a lot of great ritual monsters. We have White Knight of Dogmatika, which is a level 8 that allows you to mill from your extra deck to get rid of a card in the opponent's extra deck, which is cute, I guess, but it's reliant on the opponent activating cards or effects, and overall doesn't do a ton to advance your game state. And then we have White Relic of Dogmatika, which is a little bit better because of the fact that, you can look at your opponent's extra deck and send a card if a monster is special from the opponent's extra deck, so that sort of pressure up a strategy is reliant on it. But the biggest problem with both of these rituals is that neither of them have any built-in protection, so even being able to pull them out of the deck isn't really going to be worth it all that much. Dogmatikaturgy is actually releasing in Dimension Force, not Power of the Elements, but it's not one that I've covered before, so I included it in here for that reason. Branded Central Dogmatika is a new one from the Dimension from Power of the Elements as well, and it does say if you special summon exactly one ritual monster and no other cards by a spell effect, you can look at either your extra deck or your opponent's and send one monster from it to the graveyard. If you special summon exactly one fusion monster and no other cards by a spell effect, you can target that monster. Until the end of this turn, it gains attack equal to its original attack, but it cannot attack except attack position monsters your opponent controls. So it's a solid card, especially if you are ritual summoning. something, you're able to go ahead and look at the opponent's extra deck and send something. It's a hard once per turn for somewhat obvious reasons, although I'd argue that the amount of effort that's going into bringing out these Dogmatika ritual monsters might make it so a hard once per turn isn't necessary, but I don't think they want to play with fire there, so that would be my guess as to why we have that additional restriction added in. Still, it's kind of a really neat, interaction being able to choose what's in the opponent's extra deck and get rid of it. It's just a shame that the ritual monsters you bring out are not that worthwhile. And Dogmatika Calamity, which is the original Dogmatika ritual spell that we got, does allow you to use your extra deck for ritual summons, but it must be exact, and you can only summon from the hand, so it's far outclassed by Dogmatikaturgy. Branded Separation is the last one that was announced, and it's tribute one fusion monster, then target 2 monsters among either graveyard or that are banished, except fusion monsters. Special summon one of those monsters on each side of the field, or if you tributed a fusion monster that lists Fallen of ALBAZ as material, you can special summon both of those monsters to your field in face-up defense position as well. So, basically, it's a revival. It's a bit slow in the sense that it's a trap, but it is searchable. You tribute a fusion, you revive 2 monsters, 1 to each field, which, with ALBAZ, you could then go into a fusion summon using the monster your opponent controls, I guess. But if you tribute a monster that uses ALBAZ, you can revive both monsters, giving yourself a little bit more advantage. Unfortunately, as much as I like the card on paper, I don't think it's going to do anything all that drastic, but it might be something that I'm missing, or perhaps just being a searchable option does give it that little bit of an edge. It's just, a slower Monster Reborn, if you will, but you get 2 monsters instead of 1. I do suppose the fact that you can use banished monsters and opponent's monsters with this gives it a little bit more versatility and might make it worth a second look. But on the surface, I do think it's just going to be sort of different from what the whole objective of your DESPIA ALBAZ deck is looking to do. I could be wrong, though, which happens quite often. If you guys feel that I am, definitely feel free to let me know in the comments down below. If you did enjoy the video, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. It does help. Please comment down below. I like to interact with everybody and get people's thoughts, and I'm only one person. I'm sure there's probably things I didn't even think about that other people are going to point out that might be really helpful to people that are interested in the strategy. With that being said, that's going to wrap up today's video. I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.